Do you know Photoshop? If so, you may know neural filters, and there are many of them. Some are quite practical, others more exotic, but the most powerful, practical, and exotic of them all is Smart Portrait. The Smart Portrait filter can take a portrait shot, hence the name, and it can move it forward or backward in time. It can change the facial expression. It can twirl the head around. It can even add teeth. Do you worry about the future? Do you wonder if anyone will ever again believe anything they see in a photograph? Then you'll want to keep watching. That was kind of heavy, wasn't it? All right, tell you what. There, everything will be fine. Provided, of course, that you keep watching. All right, let's get into it. Smart Portrait, happiness and age, which allows us to go in both directions. In other words, we can take this woman here, who I've already modified in a previous movie, and we can send her back in time till she looks like a totally different person. But more to the point, this is 100% the result of the Smart Portrait filter. Very powerful filter, if nothing else. And we're also going to take this guy, and we're going to move him a little bit forward in time, which doesn't look like it's going to work out well for him at all. In any event, I'll switch back to this image here. And now recall that we already skin smoothed this image. So in other words, I applied the skin smoothing filter, which is a neural filter. So notice here in the layers panel that we're seeing a thumbnail with a little page in the bottom right corner, which tells us that we have an image, a nice, safe image embedded inside of this indestructible smart object. And we have a smart filter applied to it. And editable smart filters. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on neural filters to open the neural filters workspace. And notice that we do indeed have skin smoothing turned on. That is just fine. You can add as many filters as there are inside of this workspace. So I'm going to turn on Smart Portrait, which as things stand now is at the top of the stack. Notice nothing happens, and that's because I haven't modified any of these featured options. If you're not seeing them, then go ahead and expand this item like so. And I'm just going to go ahead and scoot her over a little bit so we can keep track of her face. And I'm going to crank up the happiness value so that we can see that we have a progress bar down here at the bottom that's telling us that this is processing in the cloud. And if you notice up here in the top right corner, this filter processes image data in the cloud, which means remotely, which is more slowly than were it to be directly on the device. However, that changes from this point on. So after the first time you make a change with this filter to a specific image, then from that point on, you process on the device, which is faster. Now, notice she now has teeth. They're very lovely, and they are unique, by the way. So this is going to get switched out. So far as I can tell, this filter behaves randomly, so it makes different decisions every time. Now, if you don't want her to be happy, if for whatever reason, you unkind person, then you can crank the happiness value down to -50, and now it's processing on the device. Did you see that? Now she's pouting. She is very unhappy indeed. Pouting is about as unhappy as this filter gets. But I don't want her to be unhappy, so I'm going to crank her up. I'm just going to select this value by clicking on it. I'm going to crank the happiness value up to 40, which seems like a generous amount of happiness. And then I'm going to, let's say, crank the facial age value up to +50. Let's make her older, just for starters. Processing on the device, by the way. Did you see that down there at the bottom? From this point on, things are going faster. In any event, yes, she's very old now. But what I really want you to notice is auto balance combinations. If you click on this eye right here, it's going to tell you that this constrains combinations to create a more natural effect. In other words, it constrains you. It constrains your creative freedom. It really does. And that's so things don't fall apart. Basically, all of these options are kind of in opposition to each other. And so if you go too far, then the image is going to start to suffer, is the idea. But even so, I prefer to turn this checkbox off, and I want you to keep an eye on the image here. As soon as I turn this checkbox off, it is processing on the device again, and notice she got even older. She got a little bit happier and toothless as well. Well, that's not really what we want. I want her facial age to go down. Why facial age, by the way? Because it's affecting the face. It doesn't affect the neck, and it doesn't affect like the shoulders and so forth. So that's something to really, really super keep in mind, because it can kind of make the image look a little wonky. You might expect that when you're doing crazy stuff like this. But anyway, I'm going to take the facial age down to -50. The negative values are younger values, by the way. Positive values are older values. And you can see she got much younger. She also lost all the jewelry on her forehead. Not all of it. She still has a few sparkles and this thing right here. But, you know, most of it's gone away. And she did lose some of her nose ring ornamentation over here. But hey, you know, I guess that's the cost of using this filter. Now, how about hair thickness? Well, her hair's already gotten thicker. If you want to see a before and after view, by the way, you can click down here and show original, which is kind of the preview option. But really, it's turning off all the filters, skin smoothing and smart portrait, by the way. And then if I click again, it turns them both on. If you just want to see the effect of smart portrait and nothing more, just turn it off. Like so. And then a moment later, you'll see the image skin smoothed, but not happier or younger. And then if you want to turn those options on again, they will be maintained, by the way. So just go ahead and turn on that option and everything comes back. All right, so I didn't really show you what I wanted to show you there. I just showed you how to do it. Notice she has so much jewelry going on. We really don't see much of her hair at all until we go ahead and turn Smart Portrait back on, at which point she loses her jewelry and she has a bunch of hair. Well, let's make her hair even thicker by cranking the hair thickness value up to +50. No reason to be subtle about these modifications. And she gets something resembling a mullet, really, but it looks great, I think. Looks good on her anyway. And then the eye direction, if you want to move the eyes to the right, you go with a positive value, like so. And then if you want to move them to the left, you go with a negative value. And it works great as long as auto balance is turned off. If you turn that on, you're going to get a very different looking effect. Let's see what it looks like. Notice she's just agog at this point. She's not really looking over to the left. She's looking beyond us, like there's something attacking me. All right, I'm going to turn that checkbox off, and that makes me feel a lot better. And then I'm going to set this value to, I came up with +10. You can go your own way. Now, notice things are not perfect. You may notice a few kind of little issues here. She no longer has anything resembling jewelry on her forehead because it's all bangs now. And but she does have a fading nose ring ornament. It just kind of goes nowhere. And then we have some iffy jaw lines. Notice over here on the right-hand side and on the left, her jaw kind of drifts. We'll take a look at that in a different movie. But for now, just make sure output is still set to Smart Filter. It will be, because we're working with the Smart object. And so I'll click OK in order to apply that effect. And then you may get a delay. Don't worry about it. A moment later, the Smart Filter will update. All right, so that's one way to work. I'm going to switch over to this dude right here. And notice he's a flat image. We just have this flat background here inside the Layers panel. I want to apply whatever this thing, Smart Portrait, as a smart filter. How smart is that? And so I want to convert this guy to an independent layer by double clicking on it. And I'll just go ahead and call this guy model, because that's what he is, a model for the shot. And now I'll go up to the filter menu and choose not the first one, because that's going to reapply the same settings. We want neural filters ... And so go ahead and choose that. That brings up the Neural Filters workspace in all of its splendor. Notice there are no filters applied at this point, so I'll just go ahead and turn on the Smart Portrait like so. Now, it's a foregone. Well, you know what? I'm going to just show you this. This guy, we can make him sad as well. Again, I believe, notice it's processing on the cloud, and that's because this is the first time we're using this filter on this particular image. So that first slider bar is going to be slow because of the whole remote processing thing in the cloud. All right, but, you know, in a second, there we go. He is very huffy. I would say he's huffy as opposed to pouty. He's like, I don't know what to do with that guy. Let's make him peppy. let's just make him cheerful as heck. I'll take the happiness value up to plus 50, and it's processing on the device much more quickly, you can see. And now he's demented. But in any event, if that's happiness for him, so be it. Now I'm going to increase his facial age. I'll just crank it all the way up to plus 50, and you'll see how very old he gets. He doesn't get old at all. He loses a few hair. Actually, he loses some hairs in the middle of those said hairs, and he gets kind of frowny. He gets a little bit of a wrinkle over on this side here, a kind of crease. That is not old. And so what you have to do is turn off. You're not going to notice the effects of this checkbox until you combine two options, by the way, two changes, and then turn off that checkbox. And then that's when the fireworks really begin. That's when you're going to see some oldness going on here. And so what I would suggest you do, see, look what happens. If I change his facial age to 40, let's try that. And that will process on the device once again. That makes him look the same. He doesn't look different at all. This filter is so weird. I'm telling you this by way of training. This is real info. It makes different decisions every single time you use it. What I came up with, the facial age value I came up with was plus 45, but yeah, that makes kind of a little bit of a difference, whatever. In any event, you can, feel free to play with these options. They will not hurt you. All right, hair thickness. Of course, his hair's already gotten thinner. Do you want to see the difference so far? It's really great. I'll go ahead and turn that off for a second. Notice all of his hair is dark. He does have some tips going on. I also want you to notice that he's got this kind of double pupil thing. I'm going to zoom in here. Double iris is really what I mean. Notice that he has an iris drift as if he's wearing contact lenses. I'm not sure if that's what this is. Also, there's some masking going on in this image. Notice that his ear is out of focus, but the background is totally in focus again. So I don't know what kind of retouching is going on where this image is concerned. I just wanted you to see that he's got those double irises. And now I'm going to turn Smart Portrait back on. So mostly he's got dark hair. As soon as I turn it back on, his hair has been highlighted in deference to the fact that he's old now. All right, but I want his hair to be thinner, so I'm going to crank this value, and this is a crank, down to negative 30. Processing on a device, good news. And that should make his hair a little bit thinner. Yeah, it does. And then so that thing about his eyes bugs me. The fact that he has double irises. And also his eyes look kind of young. They look like young eyes in a old geezer's head. And so I'm going to adjust the eye direction just to play with it, just to see what happens if I can get him to avert his creepy gaze and said, oh my goodness, that's not left. That did not send his eyes to the left at all. But here, this is something that I think is interesting. I'll set it back to 0 so we get his original eyes back. Then I'll click on that value and press the down arrow key just to take it down to -1. And just that tiny little modification makes a big difference where those eyes are concerned. All right, here's the serious part. Output needs to be set to Smart Filter. Do that. Do that every single time, please. That way you will have an editable Smart Filter and you can come back and make some very different decisions about this person who has made some very poor decisions in his life. And then click OK in order to apply that filter. Now, that doesn't look particularly realistic, I don't think. Notice that over the course of aging, he lost his earring. So I'll go ahead and turn off that Smart Filter. Another thing you can do with Smart Filters. Notice he has an earring on the right-hand side, his left, and no earring on the left. Okay, so turn on the Smart Filter. Now he lost the earring on the right-hand side, and he kind of gained one on the left side. Now, you don't need to do this. People, as you age, you can continue to wear your jewelry. That's from me to you. And so what I'm going to do is click inside this blank Smart Filter right here. See that little thumbnail, that white thumbnail? I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and select the brush tool right here, which you can get by pressing the B key if you want to. Make sure your foreground color is black. If it's not, then press the D key for the default colors and then press the X key to swap them. That's the easiest way to work. And then you want to right click and make sure you have a nice soft brush. So the hardness value should be 0. Size value is up to you. And then I'm going to paint his ear back. You get your earring back, buddy. And also, I didn't really demonstrate that. Notice what a mess his hair is. That's no good. So we'll just kind of paint that new hair, this new old hair away. And I'll paint down. Don't go too far into his jaw on this particular image because you'll make a mess of things. And then let's give him back his left ear as well and take away some of those highlights. Give him back some dark hair over on that left-hand side. And now let's just go ahead and zoom back on in. All right, here's the interesting thing. I just got through applying some very specific settings that I wrote down, and I've done them before. And these are the same settings I applied to this image right here. Did you see that's different? That same exact image, same exact settings. So this is this time around. This is another time around. And so each and every time, you get slightly different results when you use Smart Portrait in order to affect things like happiness and age.
Deke now. Sorry to interrupt. Are you there, Deke?
Yes, I am, Deke. What is it?
Deke now. This is futureDeke. I have late breaking news.
futureDeke, your sudden appearance makes me question everything, my very existence. But I put that aside. What is your news?
Deke now. I have just learned that some of what you've shown and some of what you're about to show may well change in an as yet unspecified, not so distant update to Photoshop, which we now call FutureShop.
I am shocked and outraged, futureDeke. Give me the deets.
I can't, Deke now. If I did, they would have both our heads. Your pretty, young, lovably naive head, and my hideously old, more experienced head of the future. I must go.
All right, prepare yourself to be amazed as we tweak the results of our Smart Portrait settings. So far, we've made a lot of progress. This is the original image. Bear in mind, this is a smart object, so we have a smart filter that is editable. So I can turn it off, and that is the actual original photograph as compared to our modifications so far, which is amazing, given that all we've done is apply a couple of filters, but it's not perfect. Not by any stretch. We've got this kind of ghost jaw going on down here. Notice that. And we have a very old nose. Even though we have a young face, we have an old nose. And then we have this nose ring with this ornamentation that just ends suddenly. And we have some other little weird details here and there. Compare that to what we're going to have, something along these lines. Super smooth, as you can see, all together modified. And we may get different results than this. It's what's so terribly exciting about this is this filter behaves differently every time you apply it, or at least every time I apply it. All right, so let's see what I'm talking about. Because this is an editable smart filter, all I have to do is double click on the words Smart Neural Filters here in the Layers panel in order to bring up the Neural Filters workspace, at which point we should see Smart Portrait selected. If not, just go ahead and click on it. And then Featured will probably be expanded, these featured options right here. We don't need them anymore. We're done with those, so go ahead and twirl that closed. And then we want to start at the bottom with settings right here. Notice there's expressions, global settings. By the time you watch this movie, there could be more. Dunno, but I'm going to go ahead and twirl that open, and I'll drag this over a little bit. Notice that we have a couple of options. I'm going to start with the second one, mask feathering. What in the world could that possibly mean? Well, in order to create its magical results, Photoshop is actually masking the face. And you're not seeing the mask, but it's there. And so the question is, how much feathering do you want to apply around those edges? So notice the jaw right here. There's going to be some kind of mask that's basically covering up the old jaw with the new one. And so if I were to increase this feathering value, I'll just max it out to 100. Then we're going to get softer transitions around this region and other regions inside the face. But wouldn't recommend it because then you're going to have even more haloing. Check out this chin right here. That's not something we want. Now, you could try to firm up the feathering, try to get rid of it altogether. Doesn't really altogether go away, however. So what I really recommend you do, unless, you want to try something, you want to go boldly forward where I haven't gone yet, then just leave it set to 10. Here's the option that's really going to make a difference. Retain unique details. Right now, Photoshop neural filters are trying to retain the original details inside the image. So like the new person doesn't look totally different from the old person. But if you want to give up on that, and you do, because otherwise you're going to keep this old nose right here, then just go ahead and reduce this value. And that way you're overriding the unique details. That doesn't look that much better though, does it? This is the funkiest option. Check this out. I'm going to change this value to 49. All right. Just see. You can see it's 49, right? Look at the image. Doesn't look any different. I'm going to click inside that value and press the up arrow in order to take it to 50. What? That suddenly fixes everything. We get rid of the nose ring. We now have a young nose. If I take it up to 51, we get the old nose again along with the nose ring ornamentation. That's just so weird. Anyway, I'm going to take it back to 50. That happens to work quite nicely for this image. For your images, who knows? But that's what that's for. Just how much overriding do you want to do? How careless do you want to be with that original photograph? Do you want the original person to be able to recognize themselves? Like so? You know, I'm just turning the smart portrait off. She would recognize herself at this point. I don't think she even looked like that as a child. However, if you don't care, then just go ahead and reduce this value. All right, so their settings, global. Global gets into more weird territory, although one of these options is really amazing. Light direction's killer. But check out head direction. If you want her to face a different direction, like let's have her face to the right a little bit, then increase the value. Oh God, that is so odd. If you want her to face to the left, then reduce the value. If you want to turn her head all the way in a circle like in The Exorcist, go for it. But wait, there's more. That you have to fix the head alignment. If you're going to do this, you also have to move the head around. So if you want to move it to the right, you go with a negative value. And then if you want to move it to the left, you go with a positive value. So isn't that disturbing? Anyway, I'm going to set head direction to -10 because it actually does help where this image is concerned. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but we still have a kind of cleft in the middle of the nose that I'm trying to fix here. And I'm going to set the fix head alignment value to -40. That doesn't make it less fixed, by the way. That just pitches it to the left, as we're about to see, which helps out a little bit, I think. Did it do anything? It didn't even look like it did anything. Let's go ahead. Don't make me a liar, filter. Go ahead and cooperate with me. Yeah, that's going to move it over to the left a little bit. All right, that's what I want. Now, check out light direction. Now, light direction, you'd think it's just going to kind of make one side of the face lighter and one side of the face darker, just kind of like a gradient or something like that. That's not what it does. Watch. I'll shoot the light over to the left-hand side. Notice it just relights the image. It creates highlights on the cheek and the nose and this cheek a little bit too, and the chin, and over here on the left side of the mouth. Whereas if you cast the light in the other direction, then look at that. Are you tripping yet? I am. This is crazy. Anyway, I don't want it to go that far. I am trying to fix the nose as we're working here. So I'm going to go ahead and change this value to 20, I think would be it would be the result of me using more temperance, don't you know? All right. Twirl close global, done with that. Let's check out expressions. Now, expressions at first just seem altogether goofy, right? Let's check out anger. Anger's a good one. I'll just crank up the anger value, and she just, she's very, very angry at me in particular. I don't blame her. And if you want her to be happier, then you crank the anger value down. It adds even more happiness. She's chuckling, I tell you. I don't want that. I'm going to get rid of anger. I'm just going to set that to 0. Let's check out surprise. You can play around with both of them together if you like, but I'm looking at them independently. Here's surprise. What surprise does more than anything else is it opens up the mouth. she's just in awe. I don't know what I said that was so amazing to her. Possibly everything I've said so far, because this is an amazing filter. But I'm going to take the surprise value down now. And she's once again closing her mouth, which is what I want. So notice, surprise at 0. We have a little bit of an open mouth going on. See that? We've got some bottom teeth showing. I want to just go ahead and close the mouth a little bit, so I'll set the surprise value to -20 is what I came up with. And now I'll just notice output is still set to Smart Filter, and so I'll just go ahead and click OK in order to apply those changes. All right, let's go ahead and center the image on screen. And I want you to see what we've been able to achieve, by the way. This is the original version of the photograph, and this is the modified version, thanks to a combination of skin smoothing and, you may recall, Smart Portrait. Now, the only thing, I think it's totally amazing that this thing works the way it does and that it works so successfully, except that, here's the caveat. This isn't the same person, not by a long shot. This is our original person. Down to her eyes, her irises. I didn't do that. By the way, this is a stock image. This is the way it looked. And if I turn it back on, we don't have those eyes anymore. So you really are sacrificing, if you go this far as I've gone, you are sacrificing, I think, the exceptionalness of the person, their actual identity is what I'm trying to say, and you're replacing it with another one. So just to solidify this point, I'm going to bring back my neural filters here. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want you to see this wait list right here. There's this one that I had mentioned in an earlier movie that will allow you, probably will come out one day, will allow you to generate photorealistic faces based on characteristics you specify. So in other words, you're going to create fake faces that look like the real thing. Well, this ain't too far away. Smart Portrait isn't that far away. This is using a bunch of other people's faces in order to replace this person's face right here. So that's just the caveat. If that's what you want to do, great. If that's not what you want to do, just be careful, because that's what this filter, Smart Portrait, is capable of doing here inside the brave new world of Photoshop. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like and subscribe, and tell me, do you like Smart Portrait, or do you think it portends the end days? Either way, comment below. And if you're looking for more videos, including one on using Smart Portrait along with other tools in the real work of professional portrait retouching, then check out patreon.com/Deke now. And visit my own Deke.com. I'm Deke McClelland. This is Photoshop Now.